Hi guys.
Hi,
Hey,
Konstantin. Hi, Joseph.
Hi
hey
Joe.
guys.
Hi Anatoly. How you doing today?
Good, good.
Good. Great. Okay, let's give people a minute to join, but otherwise, I think we can start if we have any opening questions. Joseph, do you have any? Anatoly?
Nah, not this time.
No
Okay.
specific questions.
All right. We have a good topic for today's learning, and I hope it will be helpful for everyone to understand how to make GRC manageable. All right, so let me share my screen. Please tell me when you can see the screen.
I can see it.
All right, great. Joseph, you also can, right? Good. So remember in session number 3, which was 2 weeks ago, we quickly looked through 17 different work streams that open up when we start establishing a GRC program in the organization. And it was among those, there were access control, human resource security management, IT and device management, and things like that. So basically, as we establish a GRC program, we have to somehow manage all those 17 parallel work streams to move the needle in each one of them. And this will ensure the most efficient way of covering all aspects of GRC inside the organization. And it is obvious that it cannot be done by a single person, but if you are the only person who is doing that, you have to somehow empower others or engage others from within the organization in participating in those initiatives, right? But most importantly, before you do that, you need to understand how to actually manage each work stream and keep track of things, because it's so many work that you have to do, right? And today, we will look at 2 work streams because they cover a little bit of different type of assets within the organization, just to see the difference. But I will give you a framework on how to manage each work stream efficiently and how to track progress on all things and how to make sure that you don't miss a bit, right, while managing risks for your organization, and your GRC actually works. So we start with what I call the workstream framework. It's a little bit, it's very hands-on, but there is some theory that goes into it. I will go back to these 9 dimensions a little bit later in like a minute or 2. Before then, I would like to show you the live example so we know what we are talking about. We will look at 2 work streams. One is managing personnel risks, or HR work stream. It's work stream number 13 from our list. And what we do basically is to make it, we ask ourselves a question: how do we actually, account and establish governance across everything that is happening in people management department. Of course, we have a department itself. Of course, we have a department head. Of course, they have their own internal processes and procedures and policies, and they conduct hiring, background checks for the employees, right? And they perform employee training, they develop policies, they develop collateral that they're handing off to people. But I mean, and they do a lot of, different things. But from the GRC perspective, right, we have controls to satisfy, let's say, from SOC 2, if we use it as an example, right, in our conversation here. So how do we as GRC specialists account all that, make sense of it, and make sure that we establish all the risk management practices around the HR work stream? Another example here in this list is the IT security work stream, which is device management that we discussed last time. It is given here as an example because it is a bit different than HR. HR is all about people. IT security is all about devices and technology, access control and the other things. And but the same question stands: how GRC can efficiently establish governance across these work stream and make sure that everything is done to the principles and through the principles to satisfy the requirements of the particular compliance controls. In order to manage that and to visualize it all properly, we need a way to, some universal way of managing every work stream, because there are 15 more to those two that we just looked at. And each work stream is, we can look at it from the 9 dimensions perspective. What departments are in scope for the work stream? If it's HR, human resource or security, or personnel security, it's most likely the human resource department itself, and then whoever else is responsible for management of third parties, and then legal and others who are involved in all the HR processes. What are the assets in scope is number 2, dimension number 2. Of course, it's people. It's all the documentation, like policies. It's what else it could be? It's the procedures that are that we need to implement. It's number 5, the dimension number 5. We'll get to it later. But what, in general, what are those things that we need to monitor to establish governance around when working with this particular work stream? And I see William joined. Welcome to the session. Is it Shaquille as well? Yeah, great. Good to see you guys. What we are doing here, just a quick overview, because it may sound a little bit strange. In session number 3, which was 2 weeks ago, we looked quickly through how the GRC program, through the components of the GRC program, and one of the components was the work streams that open up when we start working on establishing governance inside the organization. And it was 17 work streams listed in in that presentation. And the thing is, what we are discussing today is how to manage each of those work streams in parallel and ensure the successful outcomes, because it's a lot of work. And for that reason, I'm sharing with you the 9-dimension framework for managing each work stream. And let me restart real quick. The first dimension, what departments are in scope of the work stream. If work stream is about HR security, then it's HR, legal, whoever else involved in HR or third-party management procedures. If it's the IT device management, then the department is IT department, which is in scope, and whatever other departments may be involved in device procurement and other things. And the second dimension is assets in scope. What are those assets, operational assets, that are being governed in this work stream? If it's the personnel security, it's obviously people and contractors, like employees, contractors, and some third parties. It's policies that are being created and such. Who are those stakeholders in scope who we could work with within the work stream? If we speak about employee security, HR personal security, then it's obviously the head of HR. If it's IT practices, then it's head of IT. But also it may be the head of legal or the head of procurement or whatever departments are there. And then it may be the operational officer. It actually depends, right? Then the fourth dimension is what policies are in scope of this work stream. Again, if it's the IT security, then policies are all about access control, device management rules, device sanitization practices, all those checklists that are in scope of provisioning the device, shipping it to the employee or handing it off to the employee and then returning. It goes through 2 procedures and processes, which is basically the device issuance, device updates, monitoring, revocation, all those practices, right? This is the 5th dimension. Then whatever agreements could be in place, it could be, if it's an HR work stream, then it's obviously the code of conduct, the employee handbook, the employment agreement, the job offer, whatever HR is exchanging with the employees or contractors through the legal department or directly, it goes into those contractual agreements. Some of these are policies, some of these are agreements. It's good to look at them as different sets of different dimensions, if you will, within the work stream, because in this case, we have a way to monitor and control them separately and at the same time all together. Then what are those required artifacts and evidence to ensure compliance? What are those risks? What are those SLAs? This one is a very important dimension. If we speak about, let's say, HR work stream, where they manage people and do hiring, onboard new people, or support them in changing roles, resolving issues, or help them with their termination of their employment or contract end period, then there should be some SLAs to that, like service levels. What are the company's commitments to ensure that all of these steps or all of these procedures are happening within a reasonable time interval? let's say if there's an onboarding, it should happen within, let's say, 10, 14 days, which will include signing all the agreements, which will include all the training, which will include everything needed for the onboarding, receiving the device and such, right? So all those SLAs related to a particular work stream, important to monitor, important to know about them, so we can, if we see it all on a single dashboard, we can actually quickly understand what processes are happening in time, which processes are slipping through, and where are the roadblocks, and we need to go back to people and help them move forward with things, or at least explain, not to us but to themselves, why things are not working as efficient as they should be. And again, GRC is about the aha moments mostly. Improvement of processes. So when you have a process and you think that it works, if you look at it from the GRC perspective, you may uncover some issues with it. And GRC is helping to not only establish but also improve processes overall. And required artifacts and evidence, it is about, do we have all the systems in place we need to support this work stream? For instance, does HR have the HR management system? Does the IT have the centralized device management system to support them in their efforts and their processes, right? So this is all about those required artifacts. And evidence is about, of course, it's that dashboard, if you will, that we would show to the auditor and say, hey, look at this. We're efficiently monitoring the work stream. We have all the dots connected in a single place through this dashboard, and things like that. Yes, Shaquille, go ahead.
A quick question. So if HR or IT, if they don't have the required artifacts, or maybe internal, organizational documentation, their policy and procedures, do we as a GRC analyst or GRC engineer prepare those artifacts for them, or how does that work?
Yeah, if we are, the simple answer would be that we have to influence, we have to somehow communicate the need, right? And explain the importance of improving a particular process or procedure and putting a particular system in place. Of course, we may not be heard. For that reason, if we are, let's say, if we are tasked to implement everything needed to comply with a particular standard, our arguments will be, obviously, they will have more weight than if we just recommend it as an overall process improvement practice. So I would recommend, if you work as a GRC engineer or analyst or a GRC leader in the organization, I would recommend, first of all, build a dashboard for yourself for each work stream, start monitoring how things work, find those gaps and weak links, and then collect enough proof or evidence of the weaknesses or of those issues, and then go to the stakeholders and in a friendly conversational way tell them that you see those gaps and you understand that everyone works in a way that is best for the company and for themselves, but it's great if the gaps could be addressed, and you as a GRC specialist, or we as just GRC specialists, it's our responsibility to come up with some proposals on how things can change in order to improve the picture, right? And I think
Yeah.
it will be received very well, yeah, in this case.
I see. I see. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, sure, absolutely. All right. So these are the 9 dimensions of managing every work stream. And imagine, and again, remember that we have 17 of them. 17 by 9, you can multiply, you can see how many things you have to keep in mind when working on those 17 work streams. It's good. It's really, from that perspective, it becomes very important that, or obvious that one person cannot handle it all. And this is when you can go back to the management and say, hey, as we are establishing GRC, here's the work streams that we work on. Here's the dashboard of each. You can see we group things together visually in a way that it's easy to see and understand. And let me try show you how a dashboard could look like. Just one sec. Just a moment. I will show you the approach, the first approach to building the HR workstream dashboard in just a sec. And just to give you an idea of how it may look like, it is missing some statistics and everything, but we can actually add that later. Just one second, my AI assistance will remove sensitive data from the dashboard so I can show it to you. Before we do that, let's quickly go back to actually the list of those work streams. Okay, is it here? No, it's not here. Here. There you go, right? The work categories or work streams. So we need to work on security policies, business risk management, application security, compliance testing, system documentation, if, for any system in scope for compliance or governance, security monitoring, incident response, IT security, cloud security, secure software development practices if the company develops code, penetration testing if the company develops applications, third-party risk management, it goes into any company, personal risk management, it's HR, the track that we have discussed, physical and environmental security, vulnerability management, access controls, and AI governance, right? So for each of those work streams, you need to have a dashboard that shows you clearly how things are in that particular, let's call it department, which is, of course, department here is referenced only as a as a stream of work. Okay, so let me share my screen and show you how the dashboard may look like. Let me know if you can see the screen.
I see the screen.
Okay, so let's say we're building the workstream dashboard for HR, for the personnel security governance, right? For governance around personnel security. So first of all, we need to understand what departments are in scope of this work stream, what policies are in scope, right? As we discussed, like human resource security policy, employment, and it also mixes it with agreements, although it was a different dimension, but the policies, the agreements, right? We need to track all of them here. The procedures, like background screening and when it happens. Then another procedure is security training. And then how access control and provisioning works for all those people, right? Because we're touching a little bit of the IT side here, offboarding and termination, performance and compliance. You see that there are certain things that need to be established, like whistleblower hotline, for instance. The organizational chart is important to have. Job descriptions should be present for each. For all roles, it says security, but in fact, it should be all roles. And the regular employee performance evaluation should be performed. Then we have a quick look at the actual HR-related risks. This list is just a mock-up. It's not the actual risk list built on top of the data that we manage for the organization. It's just for us to get a taste of what the dashboard may look like and what the dashboard, what pieces may be there, right? And so assets and device management, yeah, of course. So it's some IT practices related to people management, to their relationship to IT. So it's a little bit of how one work stream interconnects with the other, and there is no strict rule of what you want to put on the dashboard, as long as you make sure that all those 9 dimensions that we have discussed are covered and you have a full picture around them. So here it's only the lists, but also it is important to see some statistics around each dimension, right? So, and it's also good to see some names of people who we can get to in order to discuss certain issues. Who is the accountable person for, let's say, the job descriptions? Who is the accountable person to manage people, employment agreements and things like that, and whistleblower hotline, and background screening process and things like that, right? So as a GRC specialist, for me, it's just my first approach to building such dashboard. It was AI generated based on my prompt. So please exclude some gaps here, comparing to the dimensions that we have discussed in the presentation. But I'm adjusting it to make it actually operational. And next time I'll show you the actual dashboard that comes up from it, but this is just a starting point. So you can see that it's not only theoretical, but it's also practical. But it is actually practical when you have all the numbers, all the names, all the assets, all the data in place, right? Do you have any questions about how theory translates into practice in managing the work streams?
And throughout this process, we would get some kind of help with the individual department, meaning that we have to sit with the stakeholder of those individual departments, and then to shape it, to structure it. We probably would get help, right? As
Yes.
a GRC practitioner. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually it is very dependent on the culture of your organization, right? Sometimes you have to lead the initiative and come to them with your proposal. Sometimes you can have more open conversations and then take what they say into your operational environment, into your dashboards, into your plans and actions. But in every case, it is really, really important to work with a person from from the particular department, or even multiple stakeholders, to get more clarity on things and help them implement proper practices. So if we go further, okay, let me open our presentation. Let's look at a few things that may be practical. And so let's look at a few things proving that those operational dashboards for each work stream make sense to create, okay? And the first thing that we should be able to uncover with our imaginary organization, Orbis, that when we build the IT security or personal security workstream dashboard, that we will see that they are not using any centralized device management system. It's not there. So MDM is not in asset inventory, and it's a great thing to track, because as SOC 2, for example, mandates centralized device management, and overall GRC principles mandate the same, you will be able to quickly go back to the stakeholder and say, hey, this has to be changed. We need a way to actually implement it. And the same with endpoint security software. You will see that Orbis doesn't have anything in terms of antivirus, anti-malware protection. And it's important that the IT department does it for for their own safety, for the safety of the whole organization. You will also uncover in multiple cases that the companies don't have any SLAs. The HR department is usually better at that than the other departments, because of the way they are educated overall. They are trained. HR specialists usually trained on setting those SLAs and adhering to them and trying to commit to them. But it is not always the case with the IT department. They make the SLAs on when the device is issued or procured or shipped to the employee or set up may not be set, may not be defined. And you as a GRC specialist, you can see all those gaps, and you can try to actually proactively close them. And a practical advice for closing the gaps in terms of SLAs is a very interesting. I have a very interesting perspective at that. It is not my responsibility as a GRC specialist to. I mean, it is my responsibility to ensure that those SLAs exist, but I have a very unique way of addressing this gap. The SLA is a thing that is directly connected to the efficiency of one or multiple departments in the company. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say that HR sets a goal for themselves to onboard a new employee within 14 days. Their SLA is defined and it's embedded in their playbook. So when they run their playbook, they find that they cannot do that because, let's say, IT department doesn't have an SLA on issuing the laptop. So what happens is, as a GRC expert, if you uncover it early, you can actually engage HR in the HRs will be much more interested in helping you establish the SLA within IT if it's directly affecting their own performance, right? So they may directly go to IT and try to request that the SLA is set and met, but if they don't have enough support, they can get this support from you and you can get this support from them. And it works both ways. If the IT department has an SLA that they cannot meet because it's blocked by the other department, I don't know, maybe procurement, they are not buying laptops within a particular time frame, then they will be your allies in ensuring that this SLA is set and enforced at the procurement side, right? And it's actually, it happens quite naturally. So as soon as one department starts setting SLA, they start seeing how it affects the performance of the company in general because of those other departments that they are interacting with. And this is when you become most helpful, because if they go alone and request something, they need leadership support to confirm. Not always companies are ready to go directly to their leadership and request that support. But if they have a GRC specialist who is responsible for establishing, establishing governance and improving processes within the organization, they will use you. You will become useful and helpful in enforcing those SLAs, and it rolls back to your own reporting, your own KPIs, if you will, right? Key performance indicators, or OKRs, right? That need to be met. That basically you are progressing with your work because everyone starts opening eyes in the company, right? In different departments, and your goal is just to connect the dots. All right, so it is important. So another thing to mention is when you work on building the workstream dashboard, you will notice that certain workstream dashboards are more heavy on particular types of assets than the others, right? So let's say some work streams are more policy reliant or policy heavy. You will see like 10 policies in a work stream, and another work stream will only have only one policy in scope. Or one work stream has only one department in scope. The other work stream may have 10 departments in scope, depending on your organizational structure. It's important to understand those differences and actually account for them. But I just wanted to mention that the dashboard is not a static thing, it's a living thing, and every work stream and every dashboard will be a little bit different, and you should not be worried about that as soon as all the 9 dimensions are incorporated in it and you can see the progress. I think this is mainly like everything that I wanted to cover in this session. So I would like to open, to spend the next 20 minutes answering your questions if you'll have any, or maybe you could give me some ideas of like follow-up topics that you wanted to touch based on our today's discussion, and I'm happy to do that for you as well.
Should the dashboard somehow deal with the evidences? Should it illustrate the evidences?
Yes, it should actually. So as you work through all 9 dimensions here, you define things in scope and you show them on the dashboard. And the second part of, so there are multiple parts of the exercise here, right? So you first set up the dashboard itself so you can navigate the work stream, right? If it's IT security, you see all the HR department, all the people are in scope, all the contractors are in scope, stakeholders are your HR head, and whatever the policies are, the code of conduct, the personal security policy, the procedures are onboarding, offboarding, and such. The agreements are the employee agreement, the job offer, risks associated with those assets. This is something that you need to come up with based on what you see on the dashboard. So usually how, especially when organization is just approaching, it tries to manage compliance and to implement compliance without actually establishing GRC first. They look at risks they look at risk inventory as at a document that they have to prepare for the auditor. It is not actually listing the actual risks that they are really facing in their day-to-day operations. And what this workstream dashboard helps you do is, it's unavoidable that you want to see the risks, the list of risks on the workstream dashboard that are real for this particular workstream. So in this case, you will start to come up with the list of actual risks that are really maybe affecting the performance of the company or reputation of the company, right? Some of them are material, some immaterial, some existential, some are less affecting or impactful. But you don't want to see bullshit on that dashboard because it doesn't make sense for you to operate the work stream, right? And the same thing is about, after you build all that, after you define, after you dealt with all those lists, the second part of the exercise is to see, okay, if we are implementing compliance against a particular compliance standard, in our example is SOC 2, what are those controls from SOC 2 that are applicable to this work stream? And this was actually a starter that I wanted to show you on the example dashboard that I built real quick for this session, but it is a little bit misleading, but we'll get there. We will adjust it by the next session. It should also show the list of compliance controls and how they are mapped, how they enforce the need, right? Or how they impact or influence the need for addressing the gaps that you see on the dashboard after you built it. It is natural, getting back to evidence, the third part will be, so the first part is to establish the dashboard itself. The second part is to see what controls are applicable to that particular work stream and what gaps they uncover in addition to what you already see on the dashboard. And the third part of the exercise is to find a way to start collecting evidence of those gaps, and then naturally the evidence of those gaps being addressed over time when you work with the department, with the stakeholders to actually address them, right? So the dashboard should also show you what information is being collected, if it's possible to collect it in an automated manner, to show the status of each item in those 9 lists. And every list is one dimension. And your goal is to finally get what I call the statistics on the dashboard that will show you how are we doing, what are the gaps, what's the current live situation if we are able to collect it automatically. And collecting information is basically equal to collecting evidence, right, for all those dimensions. What this evidence shows, and it will actually open up a roadmap for us on addressing the gaps and working directly with people or implementing some technology measures to protect resources to close those gaps. So it's a 3-stage exercise, and all 3 stages on each dimension have to be kept in mind and repeated and ensured, right, that you are showing everything that is related to the work stream, that is operational in a way that you can see the gaps, right, and that it gives you the work plan to work with the others to address them. And then you can always go back to this dashboard. If the evidence is automatically collected, you can see the results of your efforts. Does this answer your question, Anatoly?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Do you guys have any? I mean, I'm happy that you're not asking questions, but at the same time, I'm a little bit worried. Does it mean that things are not clear or so much off that it doesn't trigger any questions, or is it really like so that the picture that I'm building for you is clear?
It's pretty clear.
It's the latter. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. It's understandable, and like I remember, I was telling you in the very beginning that I like your answers, just because it's not just a yes and no, it has a little more meat to it. So it's easy to understand, and especially whenever it's like coupled with real life example, then it makes it even much easier.
Okay, great. And I'm happy that it's clear. So, and please keep coming with follow-up questions through Reddit or anything. And I showed you a little bit of this platform that I'm building right now to manage compliance for my customers. And this is one of the dashboards that I'm trying to build on the real data, although I changed it a little bit to ensure the confidentiality for this demo. So I will, the platform that I'm working on right now is actually, I'm implementing the methodology that I'm explaining to you on those, on the real data. And there is one workspace that I'm creating specifically for Orbis and Orbis data that I will share with you, so you will have full access to it and you can play with it the way you want. So it's not only theoretical or just visual on YouTube or whenever, but it's also, you know, a sandbox that you can use for your own exercises. And maybe, and because we have AI integrated in it, you can change visualizations, you can toss the data the way you want using that AI and see how things change. And I hope that it will actually help you to come up with the additional questions going forward, and maybe even show me and everyone here in the group some great ideas that or some great ways to present the data or to structure the data around GRC within Orbis that could help us all, the GRC specialists, become more efficient in doing what we're doing, regardless of who we are, whether we are the GRC engineer, analyst, a leader, or whoever else in the space, right? What is important about this system is that I'm establishing the connectivity to external platforms like a cloud environment and IT device management system through MCPs. You probably know about what MCP is, right? Everyone knows these days. And to allow us to start collecting the evidence in real time for certain controls, so we can see how our dashboards actually become more operational because they are now operating with the live data coming from different systems. And the goal for us will be to visualize all 17 work streams, ensure that that Orbis has everything they need to ensure that we first see the gaps, ensure that we know who we go to with these gaps to address them, establish connectivity to external systems to collect evidence automatically on multiple aspects except manual, and probably structure our conversations not from the next week, but from the week after, probably, or maybe 3 weeks from now, to structure our conversations more from looking at those dashboards and seeing, what are we covering everything? What are things that are missing? And we could discuss things based on the actual data points or data in the tables or on the visualizations that about very different things that we only want to discuss to understand the topic, the subject better. Okay, so this is where I'm going, and the workspace will have a drive, the file drive, where you will have all the collateral that we're creating throughout these sessions. So you can download it, or you can upload additional data if you want to play with it and try to populate it and visualize it through this workspace. How does it sound?
Yeah, thank you. It sounds very good. And also, Konstantin, you mentioned that you will create a Google Workspace, a Google Drive for us with all the artifacts, PowerPoint presentations for the sessions and the videos and stuff, that you will keep it in one central location. Were you able to look into that? Or,
I haven't done that, but instead I'll give you access to this workspace. It will have all those files on the drive, so you can download them at any time.
Okay, wonderful.
Instead of doing the Google Drive, we'll just have access to this system, and you'll have all the collateral through here.
Meaning that all those PowerPoint presentations that we have gone through during our sessions and videos. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
And all sample data in CSV format for Orbis, to import anywhere you want, and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Sure.
Good. So our session today is a little bit shorter than the previous ones, but I like that we are getting clarity on things, and it takes us less and less time to actually review all that, which may be a good sign overall. But let's get ready to get more and more practical over the next sessions and touch more subjects like cloud environment, have another look at IT, centralized device management stuff, and things like that.
right.
Also, I
Thank you
wanted
so
to
much.
ask you,
Sounds good.
Konstantin, I know down the road, do you have plan to offer these sessions over the weekends? Because I have few people, they would love to join, like a handful of people, but they all work this time. So they requested me to ask you if you have any vision to offer this sessions like down the road over the weekend or something, in any other days of the weekend.
Yeah, we can do that. Why don't we discuss that in our chat on Reddit? So I'll offer some time blocks, and we can discuss it in our GRC learning group, so
Sure.
everyone sees it, and they could join if we do sessions on the weekend as well.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. I'm really, really happy to see you all, although we are not on camera today. Anyway, it's great, and I'm looking forward to what the next week brings for us, and let's stay in contact, okay? And have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You have a
Thank
good day.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
See you
Bye-bye.
next
Okay,
week.
guys.
See you next week.
See you.